Hi everyone, I'm Stara Sibi. I'm a menopause coach and I'm a host of this Inspire show. And as you know, I always bring in guests who can inspire you on some way. Today we have Lucie Ptasznik here as a guest from Hi. Hi
Why, hello,
Lucie.
my dear. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dive right into this conversation.
Yes, you are a speaker, a coach and entrepreneur, and you are helping women or men too
What'd
to
you say?
transfer their life. Not just
Oh,
women. Sorry, I have always women for guests, and speaking about women, and I have listeners women, so that's why I asking.
yeah.
So you helping women and men also to achieve their
I have,
goals.
oh, yes, absolutely. That's what I am obsessed with is teaching people all about quantum physics and how to leverage the laws of the universe to essentially collapse timelines and take massive action towards your goals. So that way, instead of having that far out idea of one day, I hope to one day finally achieve this, bringing that closer and bringing that more tangible. So that way, instead of one day, you're like, in 6 months, in 5 months, in 3 months, in 2 months, oh my gosh, this is real. And just bringing that into your 3D reality as quickly as possible.
So that's why. What are you doing? Yeah. And what is your story? Why did you start this?
Yeah, so my story actually, I'm from Michigan in the United States, and I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, and I was just obsessed with horses ever since I can remember. And I would beg my dad, dear, like, Dad, please buy me a horse, buy me a horse. And I grew up, my parents didn't have a lot of money. My parents were blue collar workers. My mom had two factory jobs. So my parents did not have the financial means to purchase, let alone maintain a horse. But I never gave up on my dream. And eventually, when I was 16 years old, the day I got my driver's license, I wrote a Craigslist ad and I said, I will ride your horse for free. And then from there, I had a bunch of Yahoos calling me with their unbroke, green broke horses that hadn't been worked with, touched, or handled in 5 to 10 years. So I'm driving out, going to ride these horses, getting bucked off, thrown off, flipped over on top of. But I never let that stop me. It was like live and learn. Your life is gonna throw obstacles your way. You're going to fall off the horse, you're going to eat dirt, but you don't stop. And it was all about just staying laser focused on your goals, no matter what difficulty or hardship was thrown in front of me. Just get back on the horse. And that's what I did time and time again. So it's all about, and now and like I never had any professional instruction or education horseback riding. The horses taught me everything I know. And so today I buy, train, and sell horses all over the country. And I accidentally went on to open one of Michigan's largest public trail riding companies. And people are like, "Oh no, you're so lucky, you're so lucky." And I like to tell people, no, it's not about luck. I failed so many times, and I just kept going. So it's just failing forward. You live and you learn from your mistakes, and then you figure out, okay, how can I pivot? What can I do better? How can I improve my methods? And so it's all about that mindset of just, I'm going to fail in order to get to where I want to be. It's just learning to never give up and keep believing in yourself.
Yes. How you start to work with somebody? What is the first thing you are doing?
What's the first thing? What'd you say?
When you start to coach somebody, what is
Oh,
the
yes.
first thing how do you start?
Yes, absolutely. So, what we do is we have a 16-week coaching program, And it's actually based off of 3 key pillars. The first pillar is energy or state. And so what that essentially means is that I like to start off with kind of explaining a little bit about quantum physics and really getting people to understand that everything is energy. Our highest form of currency is our energy, and that we live in a vibrational universe where everything moves and everything vibrates, and it's an attraction-based universe. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And so we are energetic beings by nature, and we are energetic receivers and interpreters. So when we have our 5 senses and we hear a noise, that's our ears interpreting the vibration or the frequency of a sound. And same thing when we're looking at light. When we're looking at the light spectrum, our eyes are interpreting the frequency of the light wave, and then that's getting shot to our brain and interpreted as a certain color, whether it's red, green, blue, or yellow. Same thing with touch, smell, taste. Everything that we're experiencing is essentially a vibration. And so then once you start to dive into that, you start to understand that like we live in this vibrational world where energy is everything. And so when you take and so some people might listen to that and say, hey, that sounds kind of woohoo, that sounds a little bit out there. But when you break it down, everything's made of matter. Matter is made of atoms, and atoms are made of particles called protons and electrons. And depending on the speed or the frequency that the electron is spinning around, then that's going to determine if it's a state, a solid, or a liquid. So basically what that means is that everything's made of matter, everything's made of energy. We are energetic beings by nature. And so why that's important is because we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. And so therefore, if we have a goal to let's say we have a goal to have better relationships. We want to feel more love. Well, if we want more love, we have to be more love. We have to pour out more love. If we want more things to be grateful for, we have to stop complaining. Once we start pouring out gratitude, then we start attracting more things to be grateful for. And the same thing with money. If you want your bank account to grow, if you want more money in the bank, then you have to embody the energy of abundance, and therefore you have to become more generous. So it's not about just having a want or a desire. It's about actually embodying the energy of that thing. And so that's why it's so important to really understand that we live in this vibrational universe. And in order, if you ever have a want or a desire that you haven't experienced, that's not in your physical reality right now, it's because you haven't lined up with it vibrationally. So I like to explain, like, the first pillar is all about managing your energy, understanding your emotional state of mind. So if we know that you are where you are today based on every single decision, every thought, every action, every decision that you've made up until this moment, then we can say with confidence and clarity that decision shapes your destiny. Well, what's the one thing that's going to affect every single decision that you make? It's your emotional state, your energy, how you show up in the world. So I like to help people really understand how to access peak emotional states and maintain them. So what is a peak emotional state? A peak emotional state is think of the last time that you felt totally alive, totally on fire, passionate, unstoppable, like you could hurdle over any obstacle that was thrown your way. That's a peak emotional state. And then I like to ask people, how many hours a day do you operate in a peak emotional state? How many hours a week? How many hours a month? And so what happens is that so many people are conditioned to living in lower vibrational states of fear, of anxiety, of lack, of worry, of overwhelm, of stress. And when you're feeling stressed or frustrated or angry, you're going to be making drastically different decisions than you would if you were operating at a peak emotional state. So therefore, understanding the first pillar is energy and state management, because if you can recognize the energy that you're operating in, and then realize if you're not operating in a peak state, how to get there and how to maintain those peak states, you're going to be making drastically different decisions that are going to propel you towards your purpose and towards your goals. So that is the first pillar. And that's the first thing I like to work with my clients on, is to truly understand that your thoughts become things, and what you think about is what you manifest, and the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thoughts. So if, depending on where you're at, your thoughts are going to be a huge indicator of where you're at. And we all have patterns of focus, patterns of thought, patterns of language, and patterns of physiology. And essentially what I do is I help people discover all of these unconscious patterns that are running their life. And so once you become aware of these unconscious patterns, they no longer have control over you. And then you can start living life on purpose, living life with intention and clarity, and move much more quicker towards your goals.
So we have to be aware of how we feel and how we talking to ourselves. Correct? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
And what do you think about why people are stuck? Why they feel depressed sometimes?
Yeah. So that's a real thing right now in our society today, is that so many people are struggling with depression, or just this feeling of not being enough, or feeling stuck, or like we get stuck in this game of comparison because we're scrolling social media and we get to see the highlights of everybody's life, and then all of a sudden our life doesn't seem so great. And then we turn on the news, and then the news is just doom and gloom and fear and lack. So we live in a very in a time where our attention is scattered, and there's lots of distractions. And the problem with that is, where our focus goes, our energy flows. So the key is to really develop that focus, and really being able to tune in and pay attention. Like I said, we all have patterns, and we have patterns of focus. So are you somebody who tends to focus on the good and see the beauty and the
Mhm.
grace and the lessons and the silver lining, even in the difficult times? Or are you somebody who looks for occasions to be offended? Or are you somebody who's looking for something to constantly complain about?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people are operating unconsciously, and they're in a perpetual state of complaining about the weather, complaining about their clothes that they're wearing, or how someone else is driving, or they're complaining about all of these external circumstances that they have absolutely no control over. And when you are the observer of your reality, and your reality is not exactly as you would like it, it's really easy to just, basically what you do is you're getting stuck in a loop of constantly creating more of the same, more of the same. So you can either choose to live from a memory of the past, and
Mhm.
then you're going to continue to create more of your past relationships, past health problems, past whatever. Or people can choose to live from a vision of the future. And that's why imagination is so important, because when we're children, when we're in school, we don't really have a memory because we're so young. And that's why our teachers and our parents encourage us to really lean into our imagination. Dream big. You can do anything you want. You can be a firefighter or an astronaut or the president. And so they're saying, like, they say all this, but then it's like, as soon as you graduate high school, and it's like they give you the boot, and they give you a kick in the butt, and they're like, okay, get a real job, it's time, welcome to the real world, you need to get real. This is reality. And it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What I like to stop and remind people is that reality is very subjective. Reality is malleable, it's pliable, it's suggestible. And what I like to really truly, there's one thing I'd love to leave your listeners with, is that we are all the powerful, magnificent creators of our own reality. And if the mind can conceive it and believe it, it can certainly achieve it. It's just all about us to really dream big and use the faculty of imagination in the way that it was meant to be used. So that way we're not settling for the small stuff. We're reaching for the stars. And then when you combine big intentions, beautiful imagination, and you couple that with belief and unshakable faith, that's a lethal combination for success, fulfillment, and abundance.
Are you using meditation or recommending meditation for your clients?
Yeah. So what I love to do is essentially I love to give people a toolbox of different strategies, tools, and techniques that they can start implementing in their lives today. So that way they can experience like that way they can start feeling good immediately. And when you feel good, you start to draw those high vibrational desires, wants, needs, whatever it is to you faster. So it's kind of like if if all of the things that we desire, if we want to, lose 20 pounds, or we want a brand new car, or we want a new house, or we want the perfect relationship, why do we want those things? We want those things because we feel that we will feel happier in the
Mhm.
attainment or achievement of those things. So, what if I could give you a shortcut to essentially fast track that feeling of fulfillment and wholeness and well-being, that fulfillment of bliss and joy, and you could start feeling those things now, because since we live in an attraction-based vibrational universe, when you start embodying the emotion of the desire already achieved, that is when you collapse timelines and you start fast tracking those people, places, experience, things into your reality even quicker. And I would like to say that meditation for me, when I began my meditation at 22 years old, it completely changed my life. And all of the clients that I have worked with in the past, it has been one of the number one things that they have implemented in their life and have experienced immediate results. And so why I'm so passionate about meditation is what most people have this misconception that meditation is something for the monks, the bald men and the orange robes that sit in the mountains all day. And I like to tell people, no,
I was
meditation is,
thought also.
yeah, yeah. And like, I like to tell people that meditation is for everybody. And what it does is essentially meditation is just like the definition of meditation means to become aware of yourself. And so who couldn't use a little bit more awareness, right? And the why the power of awareness is so important, so essential, is because if we want to change in any capacity, if we are where we are today based on every single thought, decision, action that we've taken up until this point. So if we want a new bright future, if we want a new reality, if we want like unprecedented success, we are going to have to start thinking different thoughts, making different decisions, and taking different actions. Well, how do we do that? Well, we have to become aware of the patterns that are running our life, because if we take a step back and really analyze our life, we'll quickly see that our life is nothing more than a sequence of patterns, these unconscious patterns that run our life. We do the same thing in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, every single day on repeat. And these unconscious patterns are really running our life. And so all change is preceded by awareness. And if we're not able to recognize that we have limiting beliefs, or that we have negative patterns of focus, or that our internal dialogue, that voice in your head, is constantly tearing us down, then it's going to be, we're fighting an uphill battle. And so that's why awareness is so powerful, because it allows us to become aware of the thoughts that we're thinking, of the emotions that we're feeling, of the way that we're responding. Like when we're moving through our day and someone cuts you off in traffic, or your boss shows up and delivers like the worst news that you never wanted to hear. Instead instead of reacting negatively, instead of just like immediately that knee-jerk reaction, you can take a minute, you can pause, you can breathe, you can think, and you can respond. You can respond with love, you can respond with grace, you can respond in kindness. And that is where our power lies, because life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we respond. So once we become
Mhm.
aware of our thoughts, emotions, and actions, then we take back control of our life. And that's why I absolutely love meditation, because it's a practice of awareness. When we close our eyes and we begin to focus on our breath, Some people will tell me like, "Oh, I can't. I've tried meditating. It doesn't work for me. My mind keeps going and thoughts keep coming in." And I'm like, "Good. That means that you're doing it right. That's how it's supposed to happen." And so how I like to explain it to people is thoughts are going to come into your mind. That's how your brain works. You're still alive. And so what I like to share with people, it's like you close your eyes and you focus in on your breath, and sooner than later, a thought's going to creep in. And when that thought creeps in, what's the most important part is that you recognize that thought and then you lovingly release it. And then whether it's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, or 30 seconds later, another thought is going to creep its way in. And again, it's the practice of recognizing, oh, I'm thinking a thought. And instead of falling down that rabbit hole of like, oh, I still have to do the dishes and then I have to do the laundry. Oh, and then I got to call and make that appointment. Oh, and then I got to go pick up my kids from school. Instead of and like falling down that rabbit hole, it's like, and even if you do fall down the rabbit hole of the different thought patterns, that's okay. Once you pattern interrupt and you realize that you're like, oh, shoot, I'm down that rabbit hole again. Guess what? Lovingly release those thoughts and then come right back to your center. And there's such power in doing that and repeating that practice. And really it's a practice. We have to constantly practice and get better at it, because what that does is that allows us to become aware of the thoughts that we're thinking. So many people don't realize what they're thinking, and they don't realize that their thoughts, so important for people to understand that we are not our thoughts, and that a thought and that essentially thoughts are all not necessarily true. A belief is nothing more than a thought that we keep thinking, and we have the power in any minute of any day to go ahead and change that belief to whatever belief that serves us in a more powerful and positive way. So that's the beauty of meditation, is that it really gives us our power back. And then it puts us in a point, instead of thinking that we are our thoughts, we then become the observer of our thoughts. And once we become the observer of our thoughts, we can pick and choose. Is this a thought that serves me? Yes. Okay, awesome. Is that's not a thought that serves me? No, I'm going to throw that away. Okay, or you hear that little voice in your head that's tearing you down, telling you that you're not good enough, or who are you to think that you're going to do this, or you're probably going to fail anyways. And you're like, oh, whoa, no, 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 Mrs. Voice in my head. Like, that is unacceptable. I will not tolerate that. In fact, we're going to change the narrative and we're going to switch that around. You take back control of that voice, of that perspective. You switch from a victim role to a victor role. And that's when you really take back control of your life.
Yes, we can change, like these self-talks that we can't do it. We can change it. I can try it at least, or I can do it. That we can every negative thoughts change to positive.
Exactly.
What can you, if some women like over 40, 50, let's say, want to change their life, but what, because many women uh, feel that there is everything ending after 40 or 50, they can't change anything, or that is what is. What can advise to them? Are they can learn new things and change everything in their life?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thanks for asking. I think the most important thing for people to remember, especially people of all ages, young, middle age, or even later in life, is that life is what we make it, and we are only ever one decision away from a completely different life. Your life can pivot and change and shift in beautiful and miraculous ways with just one decision. So when I quit my, so like when um, after I graduated college, I got scooped up into the corporate world, and I was working my corporate job for 3 years with the world's worst boss. He was absolutely miserable, totally pessimistic, just very negative individual. And It was one of the scariest decisions that I've ever made in my entire life to leave this comfy, cozy corporate job with a salary, full benefits, paid vacation, you name it, I had it. It was terrifying, but I had a feeling inside of me and I took a chance on myself. I really listened to that intuition and I leaned into unshakable faith. And that's what I want to encourage everybody to do is there really just you can ask for guidance, you can ask for help. And I mean, if we knew that we all had an army of angels that protected us, that loved us, that guided us, that supported us, that we were never alone, we would if we knew who walked beside us, we would never have anything to fear. And so that's what I just want to remind everybody is that you are so loved and you are guided and you are protected. And anything that you want, you can have. You can be, do, have anything that you can dream of. And you're only ever one decision away from changing your life. And that could be a change in your life from like a physical and health perspective, just like Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches us. If we can think a thought that's going to cause us physical illness, we can therefore begin to think thoughts that are going to heal ourselves. And that's why when we look at different things like how cancer and disease manifests, a lot of it all starts with like the lifestyles that we're living and like the thought patterns that we get stuck into. So if anybody feels stuck, it's because they're stuck inside of a story. And I know that's really hard to hear because I've also been stuck in many stories and I fought for those stories for a really long time because I believed that they were true, because they seemed true, because they felt true, because they were true. But true is, I mean, again, reality is malleable and you can change it at any given time. And so if there's one constant of the universe that we can bet every dollar of our bank account on, it's that change is inevitable and that all things will eventually change. And so therefore, we know that we have the power within us to change our story, to rewrite a new compelling narrative, a new compelling vision of the future. And all we have to do is take back our power and give up this victim mentality or this victim role and stop really blaming other people for our shortcomings or our unhappiness. For a long time I was blaming my boyfriend because I'm like, "Oh my God, babe, I put on a couple extra pounds because you keep buying pizza or you keep bringing chocolate or you know, he kept buying all this like sweet candy and goods and chips and all this stuff, all of these snacks. And I wasn't used to having them around me, but I like them. So like I would participate and snack with him. But it was like, no, he's not the problem. My lack of discipline is the problem. So I had to really like step up and take ownership of that and be like, okay, you do you, you live life however you want to. I'm going to draw a line right here, right now. And moving forward from this point, I made a decision. And ever since then, like I'm so grateful that I made that decision because instead of giving my power away and saying like, oh, I can't be in this relationship and love my body at the same time because of poor decisions that I'm making, I was able to take back my power in that same way. So whatever it is, whether it's health or fitness, whether it's relationships, or whether it's finances or your career, whatever it is that you're trying to create or change, just know that you're only one decision away from completely altering the trajectory of your life.
Yes, indeed. And I always say that is just a mindset shift. And if we decide, like you said, then we can start anything what we want. We can learn new things, and we can uh, um, have new goals and achieve them. And it doesn't matter how old are we, I think.
Exactly. I mean,
Um,
really, age is just a number, right? I mean, so many people, I'm 32 this year, but it's funny because so many people think that I'm so much younger just because like I surround myself with younger people and energy is contagious. And so, and like, I have another girlfriend who lives out in California and she's 32. We're the same age, we grew up together. And she's like, oh my God, Lucie, I feel so old. And I'm like, I feel great. I don't know what you're talking about. So I really do feel like age is essentially just a number. And actually, I just heard on another podcast where they did a visualization study with a control group of I want to say 80-year-old men. And what they had them do is every day for a week straight, they had them visualize and imagine themselves as their 25-year-old selves. And then they would be listening to the music they were listening to when they were 25, and writing about it and having conversations about it. And it was incredible study because at the end of the week, all of their biomarkers, all of their health metrics had drastically improved in just 1 week
Oh,
because they were imagining themselves as the younger version of themselves, which I mean, by all standards is crazy, but if you're measuring it scientifically, the results are right there.
wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, what is your message to my listener?
Um, my message is to really, I would say, dream big and believe in yourself and know that I want to remind everybody that the only limitations that we have, or the only limitations that we're currently experiencing, are the limitations that we place on ourselves. And that's why it's really important to become aware of the thoughts that you're thinking, the emotions that you're feeling, the words that you're speaking. Really, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and really get very intentional about what are the conversations that I'm allowing myself to participate in. Are these conversations exciting, inspiring, uplifting conversations of hope and things that we're going to create in the future? Or are they conversations about death or sickness or loss or poverty or low vibrational things that really aren't uplifting or exciting in any way, shape, or form? So
Then
those are
change.
all, it's all about, yeah, exactly. It's so important to pay attention about what we are consuming, and not, and I mean, obviously consuming food wise, like what are we putting in our body energetically because we are what we eat, but like also what are we consuming, like what are we drinking enough water? Are we hydrating all the cells in our body? How much alcohol are we intaking? What are we watching? Where is our attention going? Where is our focus going? Are we spending hours and hours watching the news? Because the news is just low vibrational, fear-based poison. It's simply just poison. Or are we watching, like, or are we scrolling our phone and getting lost in social media? Or are we spending time reading books of great
Mhm.
philosophers, about how to become the best versions of ourselves mentally, physically, financially, and spiritually? So it's really just getting very clear and doing the work, every single day to show up as the best version of yourself for you, for your loved ones, for your friends, for your family, and for your community at large. I love every day when I wake up, I open my eyes and I say, thank you, God. Thank you for speaking through me, moving through me, and allowing me to serve. How can I serve people today? And that's service has been, a really huge part of my life. And I encourage everybody to step into that, even if you're just smiling, because again, energy is contagious, and something as small as blessing somebody with a smile can change their whole day around in a very beautiful way.
Yes. Like you have a good vibration. Thank you. Will you tell us your how the people can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I had mentioned the 16-week program that allows people to very intentionally rewire their subconscious mind and transform their identity so that way they can start taking massive action towards their goals today. Um, and what we've done is we've actually condensed that into a 6-part digestible series. And normally, this condensed version of our 16-week training sells on our website for $1,000, but we actually have a special promo code for you and your audience. So the promo code is Inspire, and the website is ultimatesuccessblueprint.com. So if you guys go to ultimatesuccessblueprint.com and you type in promo code Inspire, you will be able to access and download this training for absolutely no cost to you. And you can start unlocking the tools, strategies, and techniques to essentially become the best versions of yourself mentally, physically, financially, and spiritually.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for being here. It was a great talk.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Stella. I loved it.
Thank you. Bye.